As you said, my name's Alastair Brown. I'm the new Chief Executive of Lombard Risk. I've literally been in the role, I think it's 64 days. I started on the 1st of December. My background is actually from the other side of the fence. I used to buy software. I worked for NatWest and then the Royal Bank of Scotland for all of my career to date, the vast majority of that time in senior IT roles. So I've bought software from Misys, from SunGard, from Murex, Wall Street. You know, if you've heard of them, I've probably had them in my office. So when I started having conversations with Philip Crawford and the board at the back end of last year, I think one of the key things that we wanted to talk about was how that relationship is changing and how banks and financial institutions have rethought the way they approach to developing software, where they used to develop a lot of their own software and now they're much more amenable to buying software, but also how the actual role of the technology organisation inside a financial institution has changed. And I think that's where that's where I have some interesting observations about how the next chapter of Lombard Risk is going to unravel. Some people will know Lombard Risk very, very well. Others of you might be new to the organisation. It was sold to me by Philip Crawford, our chairman, as a 25-year tech startup company. And I know exactly what he means by that, having been in the role for a couple of months. We've got a huge heritage, a huge reputation of doing great things for our clients over that 25-year period. But we're a very small, nimble organisation. We can bring changes to bear as our clients need them very, very quickly with agility and with flexibility. Who are those clients? Well, we've got about 300 clients worldwide. We service about 30 of the top 50 banks. We're specialists in our field. If you look at the annual report that is currently available on our stand, you will see that we have got a huge array of different products in that report. Whereas if you look at my slides now, you'll see that we are focusing very, very much in terms of the collateral management marketplace and the regulatory reporting marketplace. So having been a very entrepreneurial company with bets in lots of different quarters, we're now getting very, very rigorous about the future of the firm and where we think the value is. We think that these businesses are, these product areas are real growth areas. And if I look at my next slide, we call this the migraine slide, but it starts to give you an understanding of why people buy this. It actually doesn't fit onto one slide, it fits onto two. It goes out to 2020, and this is the regulatory reporting landscape that if you're sitting in a bank in regulatory finance, you need to be worried about. Every single one of these humps is a major initiative by one of your regulators, and however many geographies you operate in, if that's N, you'll have N plus several regulators, and they all have different, similar, but different requirements that are highly specific, come with a manual that's sort of several hundred pages long, and you need to take your financial data, codify it up, and submit it. What does one of those things look like? Well, this is Basel III. So if you are needing to make that particular return, which you will, these are the type of things that you have to think about, and I will remind you of how many of those humps that you've got. And this is just what we know at the moment. You'll see it's incredibly busy at this stage of the chart, but as we get out to 2020, the great news for us as a business is that we have sight of regulatory initiatives coming out to 2020, but we know from the density that more of them will come on the way. They're quite short term in terms of the way that they're announced. Regulators tend to change their minds right up until a deadline. The deadlines move, and this puts an awful lot of insecurity into a financial services organisation that is just trying to comply with the regulatory initiatives. So we can bring intense expertise and scale to bear on solving these clients' problems, and we can do it once for many, many banks. And increasingly, with banks and financial institutions under acute cost pressure, this is making a very big change to the way in which they're thinking about buying software. It's very much the same case on the collateral side of the business as well. So collateral operations used to be run, as the name suggests, out of the operations organisation, and many banks ran separate operations departments to technology departments. That decision to put a system like Colleen in was fundamentally made in terms of the operating cost of the business and to some extent the risk incurred by it. These days, more banks are thinking about running operations and technology holistically. They're making an investment decision based on the overall cost of that as a group, and they're looking at it globally. They're looking at it across all of their different business lines, and they're making technology decisions at the centre. And all of these things are playing into our hands when we go and have very senior level conversations with people that have experienced us, particularly when they might have experienced us in the regulatory reporting space. And as I said, this is what comes back to our 25-year startup proposition. We have that reputation and experience of delivering on our promises to clients, and yet we've got the nimbleness, the agility, the flexibility to respond to their immediate needs. I've been in the firm, as I said, 2 months. I've been looking very, very intensely at how we develop these platforms forward. We now have this very, very precise focus on 2 areas, and I see three very big investment areas that we need to meet. The first one is taking our industry-leading Colleen product, which is all around collateral management, and getting a genuine cloud-based solution. Now, we run Colleen in the cloud today. A small handful of clients operated on that basis. It's not hugely popular. Most of the bigger banks, and we're very successful in the Tier 1, Tier 2 space in the collateral management business, prefer to host their own infrastructure. If they don't want to host their own infrastructure, we have a cloud solution. But if you're a small player, if you're an asset manager or a hedge fund, when you look at that cloud solution, it's actually quite complicated. It's quite complicated out the box. It does an amazing array of things, but you will need a handful of those things. And indeed, that'll probably be a different handful from, a very similar client next door. So we need to invest in our Clean in the Cloud. You may have heard of a product called Cloud Margin. I already look after some of the biggest players in the market. I do look after some of the smaller players, the market that Cloud Margin is going after. But by leveraging the assets that I have in Colleen and improving my web front end, that's a huge point of strategic investment for us this year. Sticking with Colleen at the moment, there's a very important regulation in the collateral management space, which is called IOSCO. IOSCO is my favourite of all the regulations at the moment, if you should have favourites. IOSCO has been rolled out this year to a handful of banks. September 2016, 5 of our clients will need to implement it. All 5 of them will need to implement it, and they're all going to probably have to buy the upgrade in order to do it. I've done that deal with the biggest one. We've got that piece of software in development. We've got a schedule that rolls off in line with their testing schedule. The others will need to buy it. And this regulation starts cascading down and ultimately will affect all market participants within the next 3 to 4 years. So all the people that have currently bought IOSCO, currently bought Colleen, will need the IOSCO enhancements, and we will be very, very well set up to support them. The even better news about IOSCO is one of my major competitors was acquired by IBM, and they didn't acquire it for the collateral management system, which is called Algo, and they've elected not to develop it, not to invest in the IOSCO regulation capability. So there's a bunch of clients out there now, or potential clients out there now, that have to comply with the IOSCO regulations and are in a very weak position to do that, and we are in a great position to help them out. The final part of the jigsaw in terms of my investment agenda is around my reporting framework. So we've had 2 companies that were acquired by Lombard Risk some time ago now. One in North America, which does a fantastic job of serving foreign banks operating in North America, making Fed reports, Fed returns, and the other one of which services the kind of EMEA and Asia-based counterparties. Huge activity in Asia around the Monetary Authority of Singapore, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and then the European banking requirements, and clearly our own regulators here in the UK. We have got the next generation of that platform. We have it in production. It works today, and it's sitting currently on top of the Oracle Financial Service Analytics architecture. So again, if people have any knowledge of Lombard, have read about us, you'll have seen that we announced that deal, that strategic partnership, some months ago. Oracle made a huge fanfare of it at their Oracle Open World recently. This is basically a massive investment that around about 500 big banks have made, which starts to draw together all of their data, their financial information, their transaction level information around a firm, and puts it in one place and provides analytics toolkit on top of it. We are the regulatory reporting component of that, and that's another massively important market for us. But going on from that, when I start to wrap up the analytics present in our old Reg Reporter and Reporter Toolset platforms serving those 2 old geographies, that then becomes my next generation reporting package. We can meet anybody's needs. If you're on Oracle, if you're on SAP, if you have a banking package in there, we'll be able to support you. If you're rolling your own and you need to use our analytics, we've got 15 years worth of investment heritage in there, which will be wrapped and bundle. So this is a really important play for us. And the great news for us about this is we're currently having conversations with 2 tier 1 players in the US that want to talk about this globally. Previously, financial controllers inside organizations talked on a jurisdiction by jurisdiction basis. If you were running the Hong Kong office, you basically got to make decisions about how you serviced Hong Kong. Many banks are now realizing that's very expensive, very inefficient, and they're moving away from dealing on that basis. So again, this is the third plank in terms of our investment strategy moving forward. I talked about the partnership we have with Oracle. I've got other partnerships in the firm, such as the one with Genpact, the BPO organization that have the option of putting Colleen in. I work with implementation partners such as NTT Data and PwC in terms of keeping my professional services outfit at the sort of size and scale it should be, with genuine experts. There can be a lot of plumbing involved in putting some of these things in, particularly on the reg reporting side, and it's important that we've got execution capability to meet our clients' needs, and some of that we do through partnerships. I'm going to need to rattle through the numbers very quickly. I see I've just got 5 minutes left, but we're on stand 18. Very keen to talk through these in detail if you have any further questions. Our growth story is good, but it's not good enough. A lot of the things that I need to do is actually work out how we make that curve look much better. There's enormous untapped potential here. I think we haven't been good enough at getting in and closing sales. We've put a huge amount of investment into our sales force recently, and this is going to start changing that curve. But if you look at our order book, that growth is backed up by an increasing order book. We're in more and more conversations with banks. As I said, banks are fundamentally changing the nature of the way they buy software, and we are there. I want to touch briefly on capitalisation. A few people have stopped by the stand this morning. Every single person has wanted to talk about this. We do capitalise the software development effort we put into it. We sell 5-year term licenses. We sell 5-year term licenses with big maintenance contracts on them. This is software that has to be invested in, has to be kept up to date. If we'd acquired that software, we would obviously capitalise it. We're doing exactly the same thing, but we're building it with our own expertise. I think what people are most disappointed are is when you run those numbers through the accounts, the lines that take out the capitalisation are not as exciting as the ones that factor it into. But what I want to do in terms of fixing this is to turn that top line revenue number and to exploit the opportunities that I've been talking about, because I think that is what will drive the future of this firm. In terms of ongoing investment expenditure, I've talked about 3 very exciting areas that we need to invest in. One of those is fully funded and is in production at the moment. The other is on track. I think I probably want to accelerate it. The Colleen in the cloud piece, I think, needs new people to execute. And insofar as that's a new expense, it's a modest expense. It's about a web front end sitting on top of an established server-side solution. So it's relatively modest, but I'm making leadership changes in the organisation as well. We had a new CTO join us last week. I think our development shop, which is based in Shanghai, can be a lot more productive. We've got real talent there, but I think we can up the output. I had a global head of product start yesterday. This is a fantastic appointment, a lady called Tina Wilkinson from FIS and SunGard, injecting real product discipline and lifecycle discipline into how we manage our new focused product set. We had a global sales and marketing director appointed back in August. He is transforming the sales organization as I speak. We've taken all the salespeople off site, retrained them, reprogrammed them. We've made a few changes to personnel. We're rebuilding our sales force in Asia. We've already done that job in North America. So there's a lot of very exciting things happening. Obviously, I've been around since the 1st of December. I'm 2 months into the job. These are my thoughts so far. I'm looking forward to coming back and sharing with you more later about what I've found. So I think we're in a sweet spot of the market. I think if you can't sell regulatory reporting software right now, you must be, to be quite frank, pretty dim. Collateral is getting easier and easier to sell. Firms are making big strategic decisions around who they want to partner with. A lot of our buying, it's mandatory. People have investment budgets for the mandatory items. We can fill that need. We have got a good order book that you can come and talk to us about. We've got good revenue visibility. We've got some fantastic partnerships with really key players like Oracle. We're working on adding to that in terms of the execution capability. And what we have are products which basically have been difficult to write, have required a lot of investment to get into, but now we have them. They're scalable, they're repeatable. One client wants something very similar to what another client wants. I'm right out of time. I think I've timed that more or less perfectly. We're on stand 18, which is right in the middle of the hall. I've got my CFO, Nigel Gurney, with me. We've got some people from sales and marketing. I would love to take any and every question that you have outside. Thank you very much.